Texans visiting a running back. Is he a fit? And is it also a clue of things to come? Plus, let's Tom tell you what that means. Plus, the superpower of Nick Caserio and D'Amico. Could it be? Could it be? Let's go inside the locker room.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city too. Landlocked. Got the game in the headlock. Localize every time. Can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top two and we not too. Plugged in daily digital on you.
It is the locker room, number one source for Texans digital content. We're 3 weeks away from day 2 of the NFL draft. Matter of fact, 3 weeks from right now, we will be live on this channel. We'll be reacting to not just round 1, but also round 2 of the Houston Texans and what they decide to do or not do, which will be interesting. There is a prospect that they will be visiting with. We've spoken on this guy. Is he a fit? Is he a clue? Is he both of the above? That is a question that we'll also get into. And we're going to go Tom, T-O-M, 3-out mock. We're going to do a mock draft, 3-out mock here on this Friday night, 3 weeks away from the draft. All right, so let's start talking about day 2 of the NFL draft and the Texans' history specifically of day 2s and Nick Caserio's as well. If you look at the history of the Texans when it comes to day 2, they started out very good. Matter of fact, I was talking about this today. If you told me that the Texans were going to have a day 2 like 2002 where you're going to get 2 starting offensive linemen in Chester Pitts and Fred Weary, and you were going to get Jabbar Gaffney, have at it. I would take it. That would be an excellent day 2. If you go to, that's the first one. If you go to the most recent one, if you told me they were going to get the offensive equivalent of Kamari Lassiter, Kalen Bullock, and Blake Fisher, I would take that as well. So the first and last versions of day 2 for the Houston Texans franchise have been very friendly. You can also make a case, and I don't even think it has to be that difficult of a case, that Nico Collins is probably the best day 2 pick in Houston Texans history. Now, obviously, when the draft first started, it was the old format where it was basically cut in half and it was Saturday, Sunday. But in the new format, when we say day 2, we're just talking about rounds 2 and 3. There's a strong case that Nico Collins can be there. Could be D'Amico Ryans. But D'Amico's obviously, there's more to the draft pick. Obviously, the legend has an opportunity to grow with him being the coach. But day 2's been very friendly to the Texans. Even Bill O'Brien, it might not have been the pick he wanted, and it might not have always been great, but 2020, the COVID, where he almost ran his kid over, that's your pick, Jack. Jonathan Grenard in the 3rd round. They've had some good day 2 picks. Christian Harris, see what happens with him. Jalen Petrie, see what happens with him. They've had some solid day 2s. And I think in this draft, there's a big opportunity with day 2. Big opportunity. And we've seen what Caserio and D'Amico can and try to do. I think it's going to be a big opportunity. And are they kind of telegraphing where their head's at when it comes to that? We'll get to that in a second. First, though, let's swarm the soup. HDAV Traveler. Good weekend to you, mi amigo.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
It's Friday. Let the good times roll. Yeah, and the Rockets just had a big dub over the Thunder. So all is well in Houston. You got the Cougs playing tomorrow. Astros playing baseball. Jack Easterby voice. So this is kind of, there's a lot going on, and then it's going to intensify next week. We'll be inside 3 weeks. The report today, and this was kind of making the rounds, and this is someone we spoke on I think as recent as 2 days ago. But the Texans are visiting with a running back, and it's Quinshawn Judkins is meeting with the Texans. He's meeting with a lot of teams, quite frankly. And this is an interesting one because, first of all, there's people at Ohio State that think he's a zone back. Let me get the terminology that I got from my guy that I texted, Bo Bishop. He thinks he's a perfect wide zone tailback, one cut and upfield. Does that fit with what Nick Caley's going to do? Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know what the offense is going to look like. If that is an appropriate assessment, then maybe that's something that we're looking for. The other thing that I think is dangerous, and it happens with running backs a lot, is you assume that because they weren't asked to do it in college, that perhaps they can't do it. I don't know that that's the case. And he had a hell of a history at Ole Miss, damn near 4,000 yards the last 3 years. You look what he did at Ole Miss before he went to Ohio State. There's probably a lot he can do. And of all the running backs that we talk about, and at the combine, a lot of them kind of held serve. Like most of the running backs kind of held serve. I would say that maybe Caleb Johnson didn't do himself any favors. Not the worst 40, but not the best. But as far as all the other guys, they kind of held serve. But Judkins running the 4.4, whatever it was, I think that was a time that kind of got the attention of a lot of people, including the Texans. Now the question becomes, when is Judkins going to go? When is he going to get drafted? I would be shocked if he gets drafted in the first round. I would be shocked. I think round 2 is probably a little bit more realistic. I've seen some people say you don't even take him in round 2, but I would say day 2 for sure. I think we see Judkins go off the board. Now the question becomes, does he fall to the Texans in the second round? Because when the running back run happens, he's one of the guys that could go. And if you look at some of the teams that are being tied to him, they're kind of in that day 2 range where if they pass on Genty the first time around, maybe they go with Judkins. And I think that the area to look at there in the second round, assuming someone just wants to scoop him up and not risk it, I think is former college coach Chip Kelly, who all the Ohio State offensive guys at the combine this year had crazy good things to say. $7 million salary from the Raiders. I would think he would have some sort of say in who they sign. And then the Cowboys also met with him. And we know the Cowboys stayed out of the running back market last year. A lot of people were talking about, would they draft Genty this year? If they don't draft Genty in the first round, then maybe Judkins could fall into the top end of the second round. So from a Texans perspective, maybe there's some sort of trade back, maybe there's some sort of trade up. I just feel like Judkins, it's very, very unknown if he will get to them in the second round. I think there's a decent chance, but there's also a decent chance that he doesn't, depending on what these teams think of him. And that 40 time, 4.4 for someone that massive is pretty significant, to say the least. Now, I think this is an interesting tweet from Scott Barrett. And Scott Barrett put this out talking about Judkins. And he talked about the comps that he's seen of Judkins. And he mentions some people that I think we all respect when it comes to the draft. Lance Zierlein's compared him to Joe Mixon. Look, if you can get 2 Joe Mixons, have at it. I've heard some people say you shy away from Hampton because he's too much like Joe Mixon. If this guy's Joe Mixon, give me 2 Mixons. I'm not concerned about that. Dalvin Cook, Kareem Hunt, all very solid backs as rookies. Kareem Hunt leading the league in rushing before Kansas City got rid of him. And then you have Dalvin Cook, who started out really well with Minnesota. So then you start getting into the nerdy ass stuff and the percentiles and stuff. based on running backs in 2017. And Judkins' yards per route run, he's well above them as far as the concerns about being able to catch the ball. Yards after contact, he's above them in the percentile, and yards from scrimmage per touch. And some people would say, like, he's not Warren Sharping. He's not just throwing up numbers up there without context like Warren Sharp does. He's basically combating any concerns you would have about Judkins, which the natural concerns that we hear are, is he explosive enough? And can he catch the ball out of the backfield? He's got favorable numbers as compared to the guys that he's getting compared to in Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, and Kareem Hunt. So it's just he's going to be a very interesting prospect. It'll be interesting. The most interesting thing with the Texans from their perspective and from the perspective of people like us that are trying to figure out what the Texans are going to do, we don't even know what system they're going to run. And we always hear about system fit and stuff. So we have no idea. And if we did, maybe we would have stronger opinions about whether or not he fits. Like when you know that you're going to be running a zone scheme or whatever, like you have an opinion of whether the guy's going to be capable of it. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know who the offensive line is going to be. We don't know what the plays are going to look like. So that's a whole nother beast and a whole nother element that emerges when you see stuff like this and you see Judkins visiting the Texans. Very, very interesting to see how this ends up, what it looks like, what they do at running back. I'll get into what the Texans need at running back, and I'm gonna lay this out as smooth as I can. And I think most people who follow this team, who watch this team, who develop even an ounce of the frustration of the neglect of the running back depth, I think we can lay out a perfect path of what the Texans need when it comes to running back. And you might be able to put an S at the end of running back, which we'll get to in a sec. But first, let's do a little Tom. T-O-M. 3-out mock here. And we're going to do a little mock draft, and we're going to look at this value, and we're going to focus specifically on day 2. And here's a reminder of what the Texans have done day 2. You look at that 2024, that 3-piece combo right there on day 2, beautiful. You'd love to see another version of that. So what we're going to do on day 2 in this exercise, this mock draft, is we are going to swing for the fences in round 2. Swing for the fences. We're going to try to make the biggest splash and swing for the fences. No safe picks. Because we're trying to duplicate. We're trying to find the next Nico Collins. So we can go safe in round 1 if we want. But in round 2, we're swinging for the fences. Here on this TOM 3-out mock. And we pull up the Pro Football Network. We got 7 rounds. We got the Texans. And we're going to enter the solo draft. Tell you what, we don't even need to do 7. Let's just do day 2. Let's just do day 2 and see what we can do. There's plenty of time for mocks. There you go. Cam Ward, number 1. The Browns, they go with Ashton Genty. Wouldn't be the worst idea that they had. Then we got some trades in front of us. Shamar Stewart goes 10, 1.5 sacks to the Bears. The Colts, they get Colston Loveland. So they do not get their wish. And you know that hurts the I don't want to say fine people, but I do respect what they got going in Indianapolis. We're going to reject all these trades. But the Colts don't get Tyler Warren. The heart is broken. The Dallas Cowboys instead take him at 12. So the Colts don't get Colston Loveland. The Jags get Travis Hunter. That would be a hell of a receiver. I think that's wide receiver 1 in this draft. And that brings us to the Texans. So we look at the Texans, and remember, we're swinging for the fences in round 2. So you have Luther Burden at wide receiver. You have Omarion Hampton. Okay, we're going Omarion Hampton in round 1. I know that is kind of a swing, but we're swinging because this is a B2K type of round 1 movement. Omarion leading the way. So we got Omarion Hampton, and now we're waiting for round 2. So we took the running back because the receivers were gone, the tight ends were gone. Burden goes 38. Donovan Jackson. A lot of people would have wanted him. Cowboys get Travion Henderson. So the Cowboys don't take the Cowboys getting Tyler Warren and Travion Henderson. I think that would be a pretty good job by them, to say the least. So here we are at 58. And we're swinging for the fences. Jackson Dart is still there. We will not be drafting the quarterback. But we're trying to swing for the fences. Now, we probably need a wide receiver. So let's see what's the best thing we can do at wide receiver. We're not taking Tez Johnson. Do we take A. Maynor or do we take Royals? A lot of people like Royals. Now, Cody Stutes has brought this up, appropriately so. We haven't really seen this organization with Nick Caserio really into the small school guys. I know Steve Smith's a big fan of him, but we really haven't seen it. Kyle Williams, a lot of people like Kyle Williams. Let's just pretend they like Kyle Williams. We're going Kyle Williams. I don't know if people will be excited about that or not, but we got Kyle Williams as our first day 2 pick. We await the next one. Got to get to 79. 79. We're going to reject all trades. The running back situation. So you have Scatabo, you have Giddens. Judkins went before here. So you have that. Could Nick Caley get his tight end? I like Fedoni a lot. This ranking system does not. So we're swinging for the fences. We're just going to completely go all in on this wide receiver group. A. Mainer's there, so we're taking 2 wide receivers on day 2 and trying to completely flip the back end of the depth chart. Remember, we're swinging for the fence here. Now we're at 89. What can we do here? Let's give D'Amico Ryans. We're going to really get explosive. There's injury concerns. There's blocking concerns, but we don't care. We're going to take Elijah Arroyo, and we got 3 pass catchers and a running back. So a complete skill position overhaul with our day 1 and day 2 mock draft. That's where we end up there. So we go with Omarion Hampton, Kyle Williams, Eric A. Maynor, and Elijah Arroyo. Boom, boom, boom. Skill position overhaul for the Texans. Don't love it, don't hate it. Don't love it, don't hate it. Now, here's the other thing about the Texans and kind of where they're at. The other teams in the division, this is usually a time where other teams in the division can kind of close ground. I think the Jags have potential to do some serious damage having the number 5 overall pick. The Colts, they're just one of those annoying teams that they're a quarterback away. Like, they have no hope without the quarterback. They can get to the very end with a guy like Gardner Minshew. It'd be interesting to see what happens with Daniel Jones, but they do have opportunity to a couple of impact guys, and they could be competing for the division. The Titans, though, I mean, what's your reaction going to be when you see, in fairness, you thought it was the beginning of the end and the beginning of tough times when Trevor Lawrence was taken by the Jags. Hadn't really lined up that way. But the Cam Ward feeling, not really. Furthermore, they're acting really weird about it. This was Callahan at the owners' meetings, and I don't understand why these guys are still playing this game. Let's hear what he said.
Yeah, I get where that sentiment would come from. But I'll just say this again, like the one thing that Mike has preached this whole process is that we're going to go through it. And that means making sure we're doing our due diligence and all the players available, all the options available. I think that's the right way to go about it, is to make sure you're doing the right things by every player that's there for you and looking at all the options. And then when you make a decision and the decision's been made, then you move forward. But I think anytime that you just sit and you just pretend like there's nothing else out there, I don't think that's a disciplined approach. I don't.
Why does it have to be a disciplined approach? Like, if you know that you're taking Cam Ward and you know you're taking the quarterback, like, what's the point? What's the point in the disciplined approach? Like, no one can trade up in front of you. Like, let's just pretend that your squad, whoever your squad is, I'm assuming most people in here are Texans fans, but let's just pretend that your squad has a pick at the top of the draft, and it's going to be a quarterback, and we kind of know who it is. Would you rather them just kind of leave it mysterious, or would you rather them come out 3 weeks and say, that's my guy? I'm going with that guy. Everybody knows you're taking Cam Ward. Like, what are you trying to prove? Is this just like some sort of exercise to where you're able to show that we can keep a secret? I know the Texans would probably do the same thing. I just don't really understand it. Is there any shame in coming out and saying this is our guy, or do they not know? I mean, they obviously know. Furthermore, I don't even know that it's his choice. I don't know that Callahan has the choice. I don't know that Callahan could come out and say, I want Abdul Carter. I don't know if Amy Adams Stank would let him. I don't really understand that. This is a hell of a message here. What if tomorrow it comes out that Cam Ward is arrested on felony charges? There's no advantage to the organization to formally announce. What a weird way to think of things. You think that's what they're thinking? I mean, I think you would hope so. Like, if you're a Texans fan, you would hope that foolish line of thinking would be how they're looking at it. What if he gets a felony charge? Where the hell does that come from? Is Cam Ward like a bad kid? I've always heard he was a good kid. What the hell does that mean? So that's the line of thinking. I think it's just the football hardo type of nature with the squad. I don't know that they're like saying, oh man, we can't announce this. He might get arrested for a felony. You think that's why Charlie Casserly waited to announce the Mario Williams in 06 or 05? He was like, I really know that we're taking Mario Williams, but we got to do it like the day before because we don't want him to get arrested for a felony. Shout out to Air Rockets on the chat. Yeah, I don't think that's the line of thinking, but you never know. It's kind of hard to follow what the old Oilers / Titans are doing. Don't think that's their mindset, though. Don't think. But the Texans have a really good history with day twos. Now, the question that I asked at the beginning of this is, what do the Texans need at running back? I think they need multiple things. And the best way that I can describe my frustration with the Texans' neglect of the running back position is I just think that when a backup running back comes into the game in a non-emergency situation, it should at least warrant some sort of attention and some sort of like uncertainty. Like when the Eagles, even when the Eagles bring in Gamewell, you're like, okay, who knows what they're going to do here? But there's a lot of options. Like, what's he going to do? Like Kansas City, when they bring in their their running backs, it's like, okay, is it Pacheco? If it's P. Ryan, what are they going to do? If it's Kareem Hunt, what's going on here? Like, there's a certain amount of mystery with their backup running backs. With the Texans backup back, like Dare Ogunbowale doesn't scare anyone. I know he does everything solid. He's not going to hurt you, but when Dare Ogunbowale comes in, it's not like they're like, oh, 33 is out there, 33. No, it's not. There's no fear. There's really even no acknowledgement. And I think you need multiple backs. I think they know that too. You need some sort of element with your backs. Like Dameon Pierce, okay, what are they going to do? Run it up the middle? Pass blocking's not great. So what are they going to do? Like they need running backs who at least garner some sort of attention and have some sort of ability when Mixon is healthy to go out there and do their thing. Like it's one thing if Dare Ogunbowale, if Mixon's hurt and you need someone and you don't have any options to go out there, know what the hell he's doing, pick up blitzes, all that, that's great. In a perfect world, you would like most of your running backs to be capable of doing that. But I actually think that the Texans need multiple backs in this draft. And I would take a running back in the first round or day 2, and then I would pair him with one of the running backs from the state of Texas, both of which they've met with in Brashard Smith and Jaden Blue. And the thing about Smith and Blue is they're both very explosive. Blue's a little bit faster, and they both are really good at receiver. So you get your complimentary back to Mixon, and then you get a guy that you can use in the slot and a running back that maybe you can use on third down or something like that. Jaden Blue's pass protection, not as good as you would like it to be. Smith, he has receiving experience. He's played running back and receiver. I think they really like him. So I think they need multiple running backs. They need guys who at least like get the attention. You know, when someone is on the field and you're watching the game or you're at the game and you're like, oh, look who's out there. He's out there. Watch this. Texans don't have that at running back. They have Joe Mixon, and then they have Dameon Pierce and Dare Ogunbowale, who don't strike fear into anyone. So I think they need 2. I think they need 2. Maybe that means they got to trade back, but I think they need 2. They need multiple backs that can make plays. 100%. But as far as day 3 type of guys, I think Smith and Blue are good. Blue's got the smallest hands at the combine, though. That might explain his issues at Texas. At Texas, he wasn't getting consistent run. I think there were probably 3 reasons. Number one, Sark doesn't really know how to maximize a lot of guys, despite the fact he has an array of talent. He only goes to Blue in desperate situations. You can watch the end of the Washington game. You can watch the Ohio State game. And then you can watch the Clemson game where he went off and then they just completely neglected him the next week against Arizona State because Sark was too obsessed with trying to continue his streak of having a 1,000-yard receiver. I digress. So number one is I don't think Sark completely maximized what Blue was. Number 2, Blue did make it easy because there was a fumbling issue and there was also staying healthy issue. There were a couple times over the course of the last couple of years where he would limp off the field. They tried to make him the back after they lost their starter in spring ball last year. It just didn't really work out. But you're not drafting Jaden Blue or Smith to be every down backs. You're drafting those guys to be complementary backs. That's what you're doing. Complementary guys that add other elements to your offense. Almost like you know how they say that sometimes the short pass game, I always kind of roll my eyes at this, but the short pass game is kind of a reflection of their run game. Like you hear that. Sometimes I guess it's true. Sometimes it's just kind of an eye roll though. But you can still have good a good pass game with running backs catching balls as opposed to receivers. So if there's not a lot of opportunity at receiver, you can add different elements of your offense that might help you. I also think the way that the Texans are going to play ball, the defense is going to be really good. The more guys that you can have to move the ball, control the time of possession, make it easier on CJ, I think the better. I think one of the biggest problems with CJ Stroud last year, and I don't know if this was it was definitely a personnel thing. I think it was also probably a little bit of a Bobby Slowick thing.
Damn it, Bobby.
And maybe it was a little bit of a CJ thing, although I don't think too much. I don't think CJ Stroud really had enough intermediate options last year. Like, the quick game was really rough. It didn't seem like there was like it almost felt like at times it was all or nothing. And it would be nice if CJ Stroud, whether it comes from the tight ends, whether it comes from the running backs, whether it comes from the slot, where Christian Kirk is expected to do some work. And they've also talked about some of the other guys they've brought in doing some work. Whatever that is, there needs to be some options closer to the line of scrimmage for CJ Stroud to where he can get the ball out quick and he can get the ball in playmakers' hands. And that doesn't mean a bubble screen to Robert Woods.
Damn it, Bobby.
That doesn't mean a bubble screen to Robert Woods. Can't do that. Can't do that. So we'll see what they decide to do. I think they need multiple backs. 100% need multiple backs. And then as far as the offensive line goes, your guess is as good as mine. I've seen guards bonk to him. That's an eye roll for me. But Blue and Smith, I think, would be nice. Nick Caserio on day 2. There's going to be some sort of movement. Now, is it going to be trade ups? Is it going to be trade backs? You never know. I think a lot of that is going to hinge on 25. Could we see the Texans stockpile picks to where there's even more day 2 guys? The scenario we just went through, like if there's a Jackson Dart, if there's a scenario where one of the good defensive players falls, maybe the Texans stockpile picks and they like someone close enough in that range to where a trade back wouldn't be that big of a deal for them. But day 2 is where they do their thing. And I've said this multiple times. If you get the offensive equivalent of what you got last year with Bullock and Lassiter, if you get the offensive equivalent of that on day 2, regardless of the impact, where it goes to, whether it's the O-line, whether it's the receiver, whether it's the running back, whether it's a tight end, combination of all of them, if you get something that resembles that on the other side of the rock with that type of upside and that type of impact, like both of those guys made impacts, you're in damn good shape. You're in damn good shape. And that was the first time that we've seen D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio have a stacked day 2 like they do this year. Now, 3 picks is not stacked, but they got more than the traditional allotment of them. With the CJ Will Anderson draft, they traded that front end second round pick, and they were chilling on day 2. But the one sample size, and God knows I bring up like examples to like as bad examples, offensive line evaluation, etc. But the only example we have of Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans and Scout Goodhair and this scouting department, the only examples we have of these guys going into the second round with multiple picks, they hit it out of the park. They hit it out of the park. Now, you do kind of have to push back, and we're going back and forth on this. I think it's safe to say Kamari Lassiter is going to be a good football player. We'll see what happens with Bullock. And this is the Jalen Petrie theory, another day 2 pick. One of their first day 2 picks. Thought they were going to get Breece Hall in 2022. They ended up getting Jalen Petrie. Had a hell of a rookie season statistically, and then in year 2, it was a fall off. Damn near unplayable. at the safety position and found a role for him. So there's always kind of some danger in giving too heavy a bouquet of flowers for the guys when they do this, when they draft well after 1 year. But that was pretty good last year. Now, what would really make it good, and this might be the most valuable thing of all the picks they made, and this was a long-term decision that they made, Blake Fisher. We don't know what Blake Fisher is going to look like. I think in a perfect world, Blake Fisher is your starting right tackle and you feel amazing about it. That's the ideal scenario. And maybe you see some struggles along the way. I would expect it. But if Blake Fisher turns into a long-term solution at tackle, then that day 2 that we talk about is even more impressive. If he doesn't, then it's just another example of suspect offensive line evaluation. And it's even more troubling because there were a lot of tackles taken after him. But there's 2 things that I think need to happen. Like we talk about this uncertainty, and I know there's going to be competition. And even if guys are probably going to start, I think they're going to have competition. See CJ Stroud in 2023, where they didn't really name him the starter until a little bit into the preseason, damn near midway into the preseason. But just based on investment, which is dangerous to look at. But these aren't like investments that you're stuck with. They traded Laramie Tunsil and then they signed Cam Robinson and they paid him like a starting tackle. Now, not an elite starting tackle, but they paid him like a starting tackle. Swing tackles don't get damn near $15 million. That doesn't happen. And furthermore, when you sign the most highly priced remaining tackle on the market, a veteran, a few days after you trade a Pro Bowl caliber left tackle, you got to think there was some sort of plan there, and that factored into the decision. The short-term thinking, like that factored into the decision. So your tackles, ideally, the guy that you spent a second-round pick on last year, you want him kind of starting at one of the tackles. And the guy that you signed for starter money shortly after you traded your starting left tackle, you probably want him to start. These aren't guys you were stuck with. These are guys that you proactively brought in. They didn't draft Titus Howard. They didn't trade for Laramie Tunsil. They had those guys and they tried to make it work. Now, they brought in Shaq Mason, and you got one good year, and then it was a disaster. Kenyon Green was not D'Amico's thing either. They just tried to make that work. But in a perfect world, you want those 2 guys starting at tackle. You'd love to see Juice Scruggs earn a starting spot as well. I don't know how confident they are about that. I know there's talk that they might like Jake Majors out of Texas, who's kind of a veteran guy, could end up going day 3. He's kind of a Jared Patterson-esque type of player, but I think he's probably a little bit better at run blocking. And by a little bit, I would say a lot. But you would also kind of like to see Juice Scruggs in a good competition. You would like to see him win one of the starting guard spots. It would be nice. Would I bet on it? I don't know. There's a lot of comp there. And quite frankly, Juice Scruggs hasn't been good. But those are the 3 guys that you would like to see. I don't think any of those guys really stopped them from drafting an offensive lineman, though. This is all short term. Like your only potential long-term guys when we're talking about this offensive line are Blake Fisher, perhaps at right tackle, Juice Scruggs at either center or guard, and then Jared Patterson. Outside of that, you don't really have long-term options. And I don't think any of those guys, except maybe Fisher, you probably want to see what he's got, but I don't think any of those guys are enough to prevent them from making picks. Jared Patterson's been a good pick. Like with where you drafted Jared Patterson, what he's giving you right now, if Jared Patterson's just your reserve center and you have Jared Patterson ready to play guard or center, whatever's called upon, I think Jared Patterson's fine. He's done a hell of a job. Been a fine pick. Juice Scruggs, bust alert right now. Bust alert. Hadn't been able to stay healthy, hadn't been good. So that's the offensive line situation with where the Texans are. It's not awesome, but it could be worse. Now the question is, like, what are their goals heading into this draft? Like, what does the dream scenario look like for them? Like, what do they envision? Because if you're going into a draft, I don't think this is like some sort of, I don't think they're going into this draft saying we're just going to stack up young guys on the offensive line. If they do, okay. But that's a hell of a lot of bodies, right? I mean, I think like in the first round, if the tackle they like or guards there, they decide to do that. But I don't know, like, are they going to attack that in the second round too? I think they're going to attack this with skill position guys. There's no real long-term fix on the offensive line. Furthermore, there's no attachment with Nick Caley. The only guys that you can kind of attach to Nick Caley right now are the new guys. Laken Tomlinson, you can attach him. You can attach Ed Ingram. Basically the Minnesota version of Kenyon Green. And I guess you can attach Robinson, Cam Robinson. I guess you can attach him because these guys were brought in while he was there. He and Popovich were there. You know, they had opinions on it, right? I don't know if they're the end all be all. I don't think D'Amico's going to throw offensive linemen on them. But if you look for guys who have the upper hand, he doesn't give a rat's ass about Juice Scruggs. There's no way he's turned on the tape and said, wow, this guy looks great. He doesn't have any connection to Titus Howard. He doesn't have connection to Blake Fisher, quite frankly. They might have thought he sucked last year. No telling. On the other hand, like last year, and we saw this with D'Amico and Bobby.
Damn it, Bobby.
They tried everything they could to make Titus Howard work. They tried everything they could to make Kenyon Green work. And they tried everything they could to make Shaq Mason work. They even put him back in the starting lineup at the end of the season. So that's kind of gone. These aren't Nick Caley's guys. As a matter of fact, just think about how the offensive coordinator walks into this situation, Nick Caley. Like, he takes this job knowing that they have one of the worst offensive lines in the league last year. One of his buddies and the new offensive line coach who was here last year, Cole Popovich, probably has strong-ass opinions about all these guys here. Strong-ass opinions. And he had to sit there and watch this go down. Assistant offensive line coaches can be resources. It just depends what they're going to do. Cole Popovich isn't telling Chris Strausser and Bobby Slowick and D'Amico Ryans who to start. He's now the starting offensive line coach. He's seen this. So he has, and we'll probably get a clue early on, but he has strong opinions about everybody who started a game last year. And that was probably part of his interview process. If they know what the hell they're doing. If you interview someone who's an assistant O-line coach, and the offensive line was one of the worst offensive lines in the league, how do you think that interview goes? Now, I think Nick Caley working with him in New England probably helps. And he was going to be the head O-line coach in New England before there was some goofy drama. But you got to think, you ask Cole Popovich, like, what do you think about these guys? Now, maybe it's a coincidence that Laramie Tunsil's gone. I don't know. I get a kick out of the Laramie Tunsil thing because I do think like it has to at least be acknowledged that they did give Daniil Hunter an extension in the place of where they would have been paying Tunsil the final year of his deal. They gave him an extra year. But Cole Popovich has strong thoughts. Nick Caley has strong thoughts. And the most important thing is Nick Caley has no attachment to any of these young guys. He doesn't care about trying to make it work. So I think that's intriguing. That's exciting. And I'm starting to kind of buy the Popovich stock. I like what Popovich is, what a lot of people say that he kind of stands for, his coaching style. And I'm kind of down with I'm down with the Cole Popovich thing. Swarm in the super chat.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
Shout out to everyone here on a Friday night, by the way. Astros playing ball. Cougs tomorrow. My goodness. Be a fun one, Duke. Give me the over in that. If you're betting, I'm taking the over, which is dangerous with the Cougs, but I'm taking the over. And then the Rockets kind of feeling themselves after beating the Thunder. So football kind of in the background until the draft intensifies. And then once March Madness dies down, it kind of picks up. Rich Boy J. Shout out to Rich Boy J. Do you feel better about the OL or wide receiver situation right now? Like, which one do I feel better about? O-line. O-line. They need more depth at wide receiver. I like Christian Kirk. I don't think it was like a home run, but I think it was very financially responsible. And I think there's some upside because he's not trying to get a big payday. He's trying to justify a bad contract, and he's trying to maybe get another one. So I like the Christian Kirk. I do like Watson and Berrios. I think they're better than Mechie and Hutchinson. But I just like the complete shift in the offensive line culture. I think it's intriguing to see these guys just basically trying to fight for their lives. No stars on the offensive line, just guys trying to fight for their lives. Scratch and claw, all that. Landry Tunsil, God bless him. He can do what he's been blessed to do. He can basically move like a wide receiver at O-line. That's not iron sharpening iron. So I think these guys look to these young guys, and we see kind of what that looks like. Titus Howard's kind of a wild card. Titus Howard idolized Landry Tunsil. He went from going on Twitter and saying, and he deleted his Twitter account, so this is a thing of the past, but he said only a right tackle, and then now he's probably more of a guard. Be interesting to see what he comes into camp looking like. Because he's hanging by a thread right now. Don't even know what position he's going to be at. That's the crazy thing. Like the offensive line alignment, like where is Titus Howard even going to be? I mean, there's a chance if they draft a guard here that Titus Howard's like a backup. Like, is he a swing tackle? Is he like a swing all the way throughout the offensive line? That's a big wild card there. Which do I think the team feels better about? Probably wide receiver, I would say. Maybe. That's a good question. Which does the team feel better about? I would say the team probably feels better at wide receiver compared to what they had at the end of last year. So knowing that Diggs was gone and knowing that Dell was gone, I would say they probably feel better at wide receiver. They still got to see what it looks like on the O-line. I just like the O-line to me is, I don't want to say people become brainwashed, but it got presented nationally like they got rid of 3 starters and now they were shuffling to replace 3 starters. Rightfully so, because that was the case in week 1. But Shaq Mason should have never been put back into the starting lineup. Kenyon Green was never going to start another game for this team. Tunsil's really the only starter you got rid of. But I think the panic, I think the way in which it was covered, and I don't blame people for not knowing about the Texans, but I think that kind of bled into where there was like a feel of they got rid of 3 offensive line starters. They got rid of 3 offensive line starters. Yeah, from the start of the season. I'm not sitting here saying that Juice Scruggs makes you feel any better or whatever the hell they had at left guard, but those guys weren't starting. It's also kind of like and I always use this example of the college previews. Like once they start doing college football previews, man, shout out to the magazines. I actually got a draft magazine the other day. I thought those were a dying breed. I got me the Athlon draft magazine. I want to bring back the draft magazine. The days when you would get that draft magazine and just enjoy it. I got me one. But I always get amused, and I don't know if y'all were into like college football previews. Dave Campbell's was a big deal around here because if you played high school ball here, maybe you would see your high schools and you would also follow all the teams in the Lone Star State and you would check it out, or Athlon Sports or Streets and Smiths or the Sports Illustrated preview, which would kind of be like a cram session back in the day when there was really no internet. NCAA football also on the PlayStation and Xbox was kind of like a refresher or cram session as to what maybe teams had. But I always thought it was funny, like when you're looking at these preview issues and it says returning starters 16 for like a 1 in 10 team. And it's like, how am I supposed to look at that? Like if you're looking at a team that's in the top 5, like we're going like let's say Texas or Alabama or Georgia or Michigan or Ohio State. Like if you look at their section in the preview magazine and it says, well, they got 17 out of 22 starters coming back, 10 out of 11 on the offense. It's like, oh shit, they're going to be good. But then you look at the very bottom and you see like a 1-win team, like a dog-butted team, borderline D1, and it says they returned 17 starters. You sit there and you say, damn, they sucked. Is that even a good thing? That's kind of how I look at like the offensive line losing 3 starters, even though they weren't really going to be starters. But if the offensive line sucked and they lose 3 starters, like, do you assume that they're going to get better? Like assuming guys are going to get better who struggle is kind of a dangerous place to be. Hell, sometimes we just talked about from rookie year to the next, sometimes guys who play well, assuming that they're going to play well, is a danger zone. But am I supposed to feel good? Like if I'm looking at the Texans and let's say that they don't make any changes on the offensive line. Like if I'm reading in this alternate universe where the internet's not there, if I open up the preview issue and I see that the Texans are returning all 4 out of 5 starters on the offensive line. Let's say Kenyon Green's gone. Let's say they bring it back with Shaq Mason and they still have Titus Howard. Am I supposed to feel good about that? Is that supposed to make you feel good if they're bringing back 4 out of 5 starters? No, I would hope they're getting rid of starters. I would hope that. And those guys were already shouldn't have been starters. The Shaq Mason thing, we don't really need to rehash, but it was embarrassing. I don't know whose call that was. But yeah, bringing back 4 out of 5 starters on the offensive line would be a beating. That would be terrible. So I have no problem with seeing these new bodies. Now there's reason, and you can go player by player and say, well, there's a reason why this guy stinks. There's a reason why this guy stinks. There's a reason why this guy stinks. You can do that. I don't think it's change for the sake of change. I think they needed to make a change. How big of a change is it? Who knows? And the other thing that I think needs to be factored in is sometimes there's not like a massive opportunity to be able to significantly improve something, and just churning the bottom of the roster and bringing in new bodies is the way to do it in the NFL. And you make do with what you got. Maybe you strike gold. Maybe you have enough competition to where you can lean on certain guys. Maybe you have a good enough play caller that's able to overcome personnel, but sometimes it's not there. Sometimes you can point to specific things. And you can say they could have signed that guy, they could have signed that guy, they could have signed that guy. But sometimes the economics, the opportunity, other needs, sometimes it's better to bring in bottom tier, 1 year type of guys than pay guys a lot of money in free agency. And I think the guys they brought in are kind of examples. Laken Tomlinson. You know why the Jets hate Laken Tomlinson? Jets fans? Despite the fact he started every game of his tenure there, you know why they hate him? Because they paid him a crap ton after he was in San Francisco and they went to they went deep in the playoffs and he had a good year alongside Trent Williams. They ended up cutting him after paying him a lot of money. You remember when Trent Brown was a free agent and the Raiders signed him and less than 2 years later, he was on the market after getting signed a lot? Texans just signed him for a couple $1 million. Kind of kick the tires and see what's going on there. So sometimes you're just not going to be like, there's teams that need a quarterback right now. There's teams that need a quarterback. What are the Giants going to do? What are the Steelers going to do? Guy's not there. So they're going to have to figure something out. Giants are kicking the tires on Russell Wilson. How about that? It's kind of the same thing with Laken Tomlinson, Trent Brown, Cam Robinson. It's kind of the equivalent of it. It's just easier to see when it's a quarterback as opposed to when it's an offensive lineman. Because when offensive linemen are talked about in the draft, it's almost like it's just so easy to find. They need to go offensive line. They need to draft a guard and a tackle. Like it's just that easy. It's probably more difficult to find that than a wide receiver. There's a lot of variables that go into it. But the reason that I like what the Texans did is because I don't know that they had too many other choices. Like, do you want to overpay some of these guys in the draft? Do you want to bring back Shaq Mason? We'll see what that looks like. But I like the fact that they're shuffling bodies. And we're going to see what these offensive linemen look like. But they need skill guys as well. And day two, it's an opportunity for them. And they've shown that they're good at it. Tank Dell a couple years ago had a hell of a rookie season. They did a good job finding him. We'll see what happens with Christian Harris. That's a day two guy that Caserio liked a lot. Traded up. Trades up for everybody in the second round. And the best day two pick of all time, we're 3 weeks away from day two, Nico Collins. Unless you want to say it's DeMeco Ryans. You want to add like the extra element of being the head coach and perhaps being an even better head coach than he was player for the Texans. But there's some interesting elements. And what are they going to do at running back? They're visiting with Judkins. They've talked to Blue. They've talked to Smith. I want two backs. Got to make that happen. Fear the running back when he comes on the field. When he steps on the field. Fear it. They need that. And they need a lot. And we need the draft to get here sooner rather than later. 20 days from now, round 1, 21 days, round numero dos. There's reason for optimism. There's reason for skepticism. And there's reason for pessimism. That's the beauty of this time of the year. Some would say it's the slow time. Not I. Fun stuff. SNL, if you missed SNL, myself and Cody Stutes kind of touched on a little bit of this as well. If you haven't subscribed to SNL, please do so. It would be much appreciated. Also, be sure to subscribe to this channel, like the video and all that. We're live every day at 4. We got a draft party planned. We got somebody. We got somebody that is taking on the draft party. So we got some options. So we're going to have a party on day 3. Day 1 and 2 is going to be super streams. We will be live throughout. I'm still going to go live after. Cody's still going to go live before, and we're still going to have SNL. So we're working damn near 12-hour stream sessions or whatever for day 1 and 2 of the draft. Day 3, going to be a celebration. We'll still have the equipment, the pop-ups and everything, some gifts for y'all. We'll let you know where to go. But day 3, we'll get to talk about day 1s and 2. We'll get to have some fun. We'll get to react to day 3. It's going to be a fun time. We got awesome stuff planned on the draft. Shout out to everyone that has made the digital game such a success with myself and Stutes. And we look forward to hanging out with you a lot in the coming weeks for this draft. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Subscribe, like, ride along. And always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Happy 3-week countdown.
Daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days. Opinions to give, we got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up. We number 1. You don't need to try your luck. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize, every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too.